Rhonda Donahue, and I welcome you to the farmhouse here at Simple Gifts Farmstead. I am very excited to take you on the next of the Farmstead field trips. We are going to the cutest little country store. It's in Shepherdstown, West Virginia. You may or may not know, but the Donahue family used to live in West Virginia, and for a few years we lived in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, where we were introduced to O'Hurley's General Store. Well, we've arranged to take you guys there with us today and to meet with the owner and to hear his story and to show you around, and it's going to be a wonderful time. So I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you are too.
Greetings and welcome to O'Hurley's General Store. My name is Jay Hurley and I kind of hang out here most of the time, and it's like I have no other place to go. Like I was born upstairs many years ago, and we're not talking about that. But we're going to get some shots of the place and tell you a little bit about how it came about and what we have to offer and the fun times we have here. As long as we're standing here on this very cold November day, we're all bellied up to the potbelly stove, which actually was made here in Shepherdstown many years ago. And we heat it with wood, and it has a bit of a fire in there right now. So, and this is our only heat source, so this is not push a button, get the heat. Farmstead made the patterns, and they would sell the patterns to any local foundry. And in the old days, just about every town had a foundry that cast gray iron. And gray iron was the plastic of the 1800s. So, you know, Joe Blow down the street could make a pattern for something he wanted made, take it to the foundry, they'd cast it. And so this one had a ring here. You could put your lunch on that ring at 11 o'clock, and by noon your lunch was warm. So some enterprising individual made copper water heaters as an aftermarket product. So we keep water in this just to humidify the room. This, I've had this a few years, but when we just got it, you could open this and it would drain water.
Make yourself some tea.
Yeah. And but customers would come by and say, "Oh look, it's got water in it." Shh. So the calcium in the water finally solidified the valve, and so we leave it that way. You can't open it.
And I see down here on the bottom,
Shepherdstown Manufacturing Company, Shepherdstown, West Virginia. And the foundry was about a block south of here, right along the railroad track.
so was this a stop at some point in the past where passenger trains?
The original train station was across the track, which, and it was Shenandoah Valley Railroad, which got gobbled up by Norfolk and Western. By 1900, it became Norfolk and Western, got a new train station. That one was torn down. And but this became, once the railroad came in, this became the industrial part of town. So we had mills and factories and gray iron factories, bicycle factory, with some interesting things here. And then passenger trains went away, and now all we have is occasionally a mixed freight, but they're mostly containers, 2 miles long and bigger. So it's quite the operation. So you happened to visit us right at Christmas time, and this is a good thing because you see us at some of our best. And the sleigh comes in every year and gets decorated for Christmas. And in times past, when my horse was alive, we after Christmas, this would be used to go out in the snows when the state road hadn't plowed the roads, and we do sleigh riding around Shepherdstown. And this also was used, I think, at least a dozen years in a row, maybe 15. I brought Santa into town in the Christmas parade, and we didn't have snow, couldn't depend on it, so I put wheels on it. And it's a jump seat sleigh, so I'd sit in the front in my gray frock coat and top hat, not looking at anybody, even though I knew everybody on both sides of the street. And Santa was sitting in the back waving, and it was a different Santa every year, and there are some really interesting experiences with all of that.
Yes.
But we're decked out for Christmas, but the rest of the time of year you can find buckets, barrels, pottery, crockery, cast iron, ware, mountain, musical instruments, clothing, record, and furniture, as sundry other items too numerous to mention here at O'Hurley's General Store. Our store is hardware, which I'm in right now, and kind of the concept was that I realized that we're heading down technology row so fast, we're abandoning things that are worthwhile, and so we're trying to preserve all of that. So you'll see no plastic in the place whatsoever, and you'll see some very unusual hardware. So we look high and low for people who are still manufacturing old style hardware for house restoration and such, and a lot of this store furniture, as we call it, I've brought in and restored. This piece with more drawers than I can count, and or I'd have to take my shoes off to count. Anyway, this thing had 2 coats of white paint over a coat of gooey green paint, so it took us 6 weeks to strip this thing and make it functional and practical for what we're doing. Hardware of an unusual nature, cut Tremont nails over there which replicate, in fact the nails we have, a big bin of multiple kinds of nails, are made on machines that have been making nails since the Civil War. And so quite often we'll call them up for 50 pounds of this nail or that nail, and they'll say, well, sorry, the machine is broken and we've got to make new parts for it, because we can't go buy new parts. So they've learned how to rebuild their machines and keep them working. Back through here, more good edibles, jams and jellies, and woolen hats and scarves, ladies' hats, men's hats. This is one of our favorite rooms, and since we've played music here every Thursday night for 42 years without missing a Thursday night, this is the room that we end up in for playing music. And so somebody brought in an old instrument they'd had on the attic and thought somebody could use it. We realized why it was on the attic. It wasn't worth playing. And more instruments followed and more instruments followed. Pretty soon we became the old instrument graveyard, and they decorate the surroundings. You can see we're decked out for Christmas here also. And back in the corner is Miss Genevieve, who does not want to be photographed, and tough.
I have a big mess.
That's tough.
Everywhere.
This time of year, merchandise is coming in daily shipments. Get a couple of logs on the fire. So we're now in what we call the Great Hall, and a lot of things go on in here. Of course, it's merchandise during the day, and at certain times the library will use it for first-person recreation. Other organizations might want it for some worthwhile meeting.
So, did you build this fireplace yourself?
Well, that's not the story we tell.
Okay.
We think Seamus O'Hurley back in Datestone outside in the chimney says 96. It doesn't say what century. so we blame it on Seamus O'Hurley, my great-great-great-great-granddad.
There you go.
But truth be known, we built the chimney in 96, and it took about 6 years to build the room. I took a barn down and brought it home. We used the timbers. And there's a man looks after me from above, and when I need something, he makes it available, like the lintel. And there's a whole story about how the lintel came to be. The front door dates about 1760, and I needed a front door, and it materialized, and not out of thin air. It was a buddy had it.
Yes.
And then I had the building roughed out and a roof on it, and we were finishing it up very slowly, years, and I needed flooring, and so I kind of sent a subliminal message, I need flooring, and literally 4 friends called telling me they had a big oak tree fall in their backyard, and I went and harvested the oak tree, had it sawed up, and so the floor we're rocking on is from those oak trees we drug out of backyards. The bricks in the chimney date about, I estimate about 1830. They're all handmade, and they came out of the house that was associated with the barn that was being taken down, and this was all for housing developments. And so we were able to essentially harvest those out of the house. Mm-hmm. And a buddy helped me put that up. A guy named Doug Clater, real good craftsman and restoration specialist, and he did all the face brick. He would not let me do face brick. I had to do the infill. So, but we did a good job, and we've cooked some meals in the fireplace. It's got a bread oven, which we've actually for several years in a row we did Irish soda bread coming out of the bread oven on St. Paddy's night. My dad ran the place quite differently than I do because his clientele was orchardists and farmers. Mm-hmm. And he had to sell things that he could sell to them, which included oil for your tractor. You could go buy tires for your tractor, but he also, you know, fresh bread, milk. When I was a kid, he was milking a small herd of cattle up a little farm on a hill. And he'd bring it down here and bottle it in the back of the room and sell raw milk. And then the pasteurization laws came along, and so he was out of that business. And, but he kept it going, and he became terminally ill in the 70s, and I was out traipsing around the world. So I decided I'd seen enough of the world, so I came home, took over in 79, and we've been having a real good time here ever since.
Well, I see interesting things like this clock over here. Is there a story there?
That is a Jacob Croft clock. It is made on Main Street here in Shepherdstown.
Wow.
And it's Jacob Croft clocks are being repatriated into Shepherdstown one by one, and I was able to find that one. It had had a rough time. Somebody had cut the top off of it so they could fit it in a low ceiling living room. And a buddy of mine is just a super woodworker for period antiques, and he resculptured the scrolls and made the finial and made it look like they've never been off of there. And in fact, the album we made of our Thursday night music, the last tune on it is my grandfather's clock. And it has but one desire at the end of the week to be wound. So that has one desire, and you have to wind it once a week. One lady who's no longer with us, she's a dulcimer player, real good musician, several albums she's had out. She came up with a round that she used to have the audience sing it. It's because every Thursday night at O'Hurley's, music and friendship never dies. Toot, toot, what is that noise? It's a great big train going rolling by.
What do you play?
I play hammer dulcimer. That's a big trapezoid-shaped instrument with about 60 wires, and beat on it with hammers. So I can hit it with a hammer. I understand it.
There you go.
So
it's one of my favorites.
It could produce some very sweet music. In fact, dulcimer is a Greek word that means sweet music. And the hammer dulcimer is what we call a hammer dulcimer. In other countries, it's called a Hackbrett in Germany, Cymbalom in Czechoslovakia, Yangqin in China, and I think Santar or something like that in Arabic countries. Yeah, it's good to play, and I like to play sweet music. I can play jigs and reels, and I do, but when I can just sit down and just play beautiful flowing tunes, that's the happy stuff for me.
This is a big guy.
Yeah, that's Murphy the store cat.
Murphy the store cat.
He kind of owns the place.
We have some cats that think they own the place too, and they're pretty big, but not quite as big as Murphy. They do whatever they want.
Well, he's got it figured out that anytime there's a shift change, somebody else behind the counter, he'll play the starving cat routine, and of course they'll feed him a treat.
Yes. And thus his big size.
Do you have any idea what year the building was originally built?
The room you're in?
No, the main store. Is there a time on that?
If I had to put a date, it'd be in the 30s, before my time. And it's been added on to. I added the workshop on the back, and I added this room. My dad added the front end, and the apartment where 5 of us lived, and we had extra room, now seems cramped, even though I'm the only one up there.
Different way of life.
Well, or one who collects too much stuff.
I feel you there as well.
A lot of us suffer from that, I think.
Yes.
I've got a living room full of musical instruments and I only play one, so gratified. I just really feel good about the place, and particularly I'll come back here when things are really pumping. We're so busy behind the counter up front. I come back here and 2 or 3 people will be sitting here rocking, enjoying the fire, and just, you know, and I'm just delighted when I see that. They've gotten out of the hustle bustle. They're enjoying just kicking back. And during the Christmas season, starting Black Friday, a few days from now, we'll have a pot of hot spice cider in the fireplace. It's a self-service thing. And they'll be just sitting here drinking hot cider, and maybe 2 people who have never known each other, and they've become fast friends. And we have such a display of ornaments that some people, they almost want to be on a call list when we get the Christmas stuff out. So we've had just a bonkers business the past week, even though it's not even Thanksgiving yet. Thanksgiving, what, 2 days away. And I don't know. Everybody asks me, what's your big seller? We really don't have a big seller. We sell these sweaters we have from Ireland. We sell a ton of those. The rocking chair you're in is very popular. They you know, we don't sell them by the truckload, but they go one at a time, to the point where I have to go get a truckload about every 2 or 3 months.
Nice.
And these are handmade by a guy named Roman and his son, and they're in a 2-man shop and just keep slugging away, and all day long they're making these rocking chairs, and we've been selling them for years. When I was 14, my mother went to a family auction, a household auction here in town, and she bought one of these chairs. And it had been in that family long enough to have 3 coats of paint on it. Nice. And it was still tough, and it lasted through, as long as I can remember. It was still going when I left home. So they just keep on going.
Yes.
And are very comfortable.
Yes, and beautiful. So Jay, I want to thank you for spending time with us today and for sharing your story, and it's been enriching to us, and I hope that it's enriching to the folks who are watching the channel. And you guys should definitely take a stop in Shepherdstown, West Virginia to visit O'Hurley's General Store, or even if it's not on your way, you should go out of your way to visit O'Hurley's General Store.
Very good. Thank you, Jay.
All right. Thank you. We're people, and we like people.